I told my son to find me the nicest place to live in Cleveland. He said, Dad, there's only one place, and that's Garden Plaza. And I moved into the patio home. Everybody knows your name from day one, and there's something to do all day long if you want to participate in it. You cannot possibly be bored at Garden Plaza. It is just great, and their food is outstanding. It's out of this world. And I'm so happy I'm here. Garden Plaza is it for me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our interview series with our friends at Life Care Centers of America, our leadership series. And this is the third installment, and it's a very special installment. I'm joined by most of the heads of our emergency services and first responder organizations here in Cleveland and Bradley County. I will say at the outset that our Cleveland new fire chief unable to join us for the taping today. We are going to talk about September 11th and what that meant to these gentlemen at that time and how that still informs a lot of the decisions that are made today and just the reverberations over time. What I'm going to do, I'm going to begin down here with the sheriff and let them introduce themselves. You're going to pass the mics around, and then we'll just talk for a few minutes here. Gentlemen?
Steve Lawson, the sheriff of Bradley County.
Troy Spence, Director of Emergency Management, Homeland Security for Bradley County.
I'm Mike Guerin. I'm the Operations Manager of Bradley County Emergency Medical Services.
Sean Fairbanks, Chief of Bradley County Fire and Bradley County EMS.
Mark Gibson, Chief, Cleveland City Police Department.
So first question, gentlemen, and I'll begin with Mark, Chief Gibson. 9/11/01, where were you? Just kind of give me a little history.
On that particular day, I had worked third shift, and I was on patrol unit, and I worked third shift, and I got up, and I remember I had to get up early because I had a young son at that time, and I got up early and turned on the news and seen what was going on. Like anybody else, had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns what was going on. And I think, like most in this room, you knew right away that this was some type of terrorist attack or some type of event that was going to change things. And I remember, days after, just the uncertainty of what was going to transpire next. And one of the particular things that that stands out in my mind is it was overnight that law enforcement changed. Because we felt like we were now the front lines for security for the country, and that stood out to me, and it still stands out to this day. Just remembering that that it just became real. You go out and serve the community every day, but this was kind of a national thing, and you're looking at being the front lines of protection for your country, and it stood out to me, and I thought this was one of the events in my life that I'll never forget. But as a young police officer, uncertainty was a pretty scary thing.
That day I was at Bradley County EMS. I had worked a shift since that morning at 8 a.m. I remember everyone started talking about it. We all started gathering around the TV in the living room as soon as we could. Started seeing what had happened, and there's a lot of confusion about like what Chief Gibson was saying. What was this? Was this a fluke, or was this an attack? Once the second plane hit, then we were like, yes, we're definitely being attacked. And then once you hear about the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, then you get the Pentagon hit. It was all very surreal and felt a little empty inside. We're supposed to be the people that run into this and take care of situations, but this was on a much larger scale than what we're used to. So you started feeling a little empty. It did change things after that for all emergency services, I believe. You have the fear now of, am I next sometimes? You got to look at it as who's going to come after me or who's going to hit me. It made you watch your back more. It made you watch for your people more. And that was one thing that hit with us at EMS, we automatically began collecting donations. We wanted to go to New York. We wanted to go help our brothers and sisters. We're not used to a department having thousands upon thousands of employees, so our first initial thought was we go help our brothers and sisters, but that is a large community population-wise in New York, and they really didn't need that per se right then. I know that people from the Red Cross went from here locally. The Men and Women of Action from here went and helped. We actually had a whole bay full of supplies and stuff to go to New York. The Men and Women of Action brought a tractor trailer over, and we actually loaded in it. They took all the waters and clothing and shoes and foods and everything that we had, batteries, everything that we had gathered up. They took it with them, and we didn't end up going, of course. But that day was a day that changed a lot for our country. It started a cycle of events that changed our whole industry, I feel like, at times.
Steve, first, thank you for having us here today, thinking about us during this time. It's hard to believe it's 20 years. I was working at the old Bradley Memorial. I worked in the emergency room as a nurse tech at that time, and we heard that the first plane had hit the tower. And I remember walking out in the lobby with the assistant to the emergency room director, and we're watching the TV. And we were just watching, and we actually saw the second plane hit the second tower. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. He looked at me, and his son has just joined the Marine Corps and had just finished his training. And he looked at me and he said, "We're going to war." And I said, "Yes, we are." And that day, I barely can remember yesterday, but I remember everything that happened that day. And it was just such a surreal day. There were so many rumors and information flying around. I remember the nursing director brought a radio down in the emergency room, and we was listening to the news reports of when the plane hit the Pentagon, and they were concerned about the next plane hitting the White House. And any other day, Washington, D.C. and that area, New York, seemed a million miles away, but that day it felt like it was in our backyard. And it was just really just a bizarre day. There was a rumor going around that there was going to be a gas shortage. So I was actually taking the nurses' vehicles and going to fill them up with fuel. And I remember going to the little station there on Ocoee Street, just across from the hospital, and the line of cars. It reminded me of the fuel embargo of the 70s. I hate to say that I kind of remember that, but it was just a bizarre day. And as the day went on, people just flooded the hospital. And I remember just rows and rows. They were bringing like tackle boxes and tool boxes, and we were putting supplies in it to send to New York. And it was just, it was a tough day, but we all came together as a community and a country that day, and it did change. It changed the world forever. Not in a great way, but one thing I can say is that day I certainly felt proud to be an American, and everybody came together. I really wish we could get back to that point, but it's one of those days, just like folks can remember the day of John F. Kennedy's assassination and things. That's actually 9/11 is that day in my lifetime that changed the world forever.
Steve, thanks for the opportunity to speak about this. 9/11 changed a lot of things, and I actually worked at Maytag at the time, and I left work. I was a volunteer firefighter. In February of 2001, I went to work at EMA. But we began gathering up donations and we were trying to get on the list, like Sean said, so that we could go to New York and assist them. But the one thing we didn't do is we didn't auto respond, because there was plenty of people right there around New York that did that, and it became a problem for them. So we wanted to do it the right way. So we gathered up materials to do digging and things of that nature, and we wanted to go. But then on top of that, we wanted to make sure that we had resources here locally, because we didn't know what might happen next. We're looking at big things going on, across the country. And, we could tell it was an attack, and we're like, okay, so what's going to be next? So, that began, the studies that came out about 9/11 began a big, long project that I've been involved with since I went to work at EMA, and that's communications. And the public safety communications we have today was derived from the studies that came out after that. And the one thing I can say that we do today that's way different than in 2001 is that we respond as a district to a lot of things. I'm talking Hamilton County, McMinn, Meigs, Wraith. There's 10 counties that's in District 3. And, the federal government's like, all right, so they gave these counties money for years, and then they're like, so when we do the next year, and I want to say it's somewhere around 08, they're like, you got to start putting this money as you're going to respond as a district, these 10 counties right here. And so it pulled everybody together and came up with a plan of what we're going to do EMS-wise here. Is it going to be 2 counties that's going to have the big cache of this, and the fire department's on the hazmat side? So there was all kinds of training that we did that we never thought we would do. That's more of a military kind of thing, and like Mark hit on it, that we're policing that for the most part on the local level. Going to facilities and making sure they have the security that they need, to prevent anything like that going on. And it made us better at being prepared and responding. So now when we do our planning, we do it on a little bit bigger scale, and for just a little local place, we're very successful because of that.
Sure.
Actually, Steve, I was out of law enforcement at the time. I'd left, and that's when I took a break. And I remember I was at Bowater standing at the filter plant when we first learned of it. And you think about, everybody was really concerned at the time and didn't know what was going on for sure. And you heard that both towers had been struck. And you wondered, how could this happen? How could this happen to our great nation, and with all the intelligence that we have? And how did we allow this? Did we set back? Did we just not pay attention to warning signs, or what happened? But after it happened, you watched, and first responders, everything come together then, and Mike said it best, everybody unified. We were as one, and we were as one that day. If anything good come out of that, you stood up and we were as one. And you remember the American flags being placed everywhere? I remember that in my mind. And I remember everybody being behind the firemen, the EMS workers, the police, everybody was behind them at that time. We probably need to take a look back again today, because even our own people can turn against us. The world has changed, and maybe that day it started changing more. You get copycats, you get people think they are, and we have to deal with those daily. Mark and I know. The situation in law enforcement, even since I started, has changed drastically. And people will challenge you today like never before. We have to be prepared. I think that helped us prepare. I think the training, somebody mentioned training, better training. We started upping the training for law enforcement, for EMS, for everybody. I think we did get better. It's a big price to pay to get better. But I think we need to look back at how we came together then and realize this. You and I may have different political views, and that's okay. That's why we live in the United States of America. But when it comes down to it, we got to stand up and be one. If we do that, we'll be okay. And I think we have to back our first responders. We have to give them what they need. And remember, they got to run toward the threat. They're not going to run away from it. And we're trained to run toward the threat. And I appreciate them much and appreciate that day and where we're at today.
20 years, and just really one more question, and then we're going to wrap this up. 20 years ago, I remember coming on the radio, and we made a call. One of the initial things was blood. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was one of the... Boy, I tell you, the lines, oh my goodness, the lines to give blood. I'll say this, the lines at the churches to go in and to pray. It was a Tuesday. We are taping this today on a Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, and the best of this community came out at that time. So let's talk about the future, Mark, and I want to go to Chief Gibson. So we had this tragedy on 9/11/01. We mentioned training, we mentioned things that may have changed. Okay, you know, in your mind, what needs to still happen? Let's talk future. What needs to still happen to help avoid things like that?
Well, I think, law enforcement changes all the time, but this was one of the significant events that put us on more of a hypersensitive alert to our training, our communications, how we communicate. The federal government communicates better with us than they ever have before. Our communication with the EMS and fire and police has been better than it has ever before, and our training, our terrorism training, our equipment, things like that. You see that peak, and then you see it start dropping off. We don't take care of our people. We don't take care of our people as far as pay, stress level, stress management, equipment, things that we need. We take that for granted. It starts falling off, and it only comes to attention whenever something bad happens. So that's one of the areas that I think is we're in dire need of. We don't need to lose focus on what we do here and what our goals are and our missions are every day, and that's the answer anybody's need, no matter what it is. And anybody in this room right here, we feel like we're equipped to answer just about anything that you can throw at us, and we need to have that confidence every day. And if we don't have the training, the funding, the support, you can't have that. And I remember I attended a 10-week forensic school a year after 9/11, so a lot of focus was on the crime scene, the events that took place, and one of the things that stood out is the World Trade Center was 23 square mile crime scene. Okay, and so you look at a 23 square mile crime scene. Well, the city of Cleveland now is about 29 square miles. So you look at that perspective. If they could handle that, we should be able to handle anything in our community, and we should be equipped to do that. We should have that foresight. For us in law enforcement, the post 9/11 issues are that now there's a demand for police to defund, scale back. You don't need this equipment. You don't need that equipment. You got to remind you, this is exactly what come out of this was the equipment that we have now, the training we have now, and now you're asking to scale back. And it just never made much sense to me that you went to this. You hear a lot of talk about warrior versus guardian nowadays. You go to this warrior mindset because that's where you needed to be, and now you want us to scale back off of that, and that's one of the things that I think we need to be careful of. But one of the biggest things is our faith in God and the faith that we showed. You hit on it. I remember the churches and people just piling in the churches and praying and having that faith in God and turning, and you've seen the whole country turn to God, and I remember people being skeptical how long that was going to last. How long is this going to last? How long is this going to last? And I don't know how long it lasted, but I can tell you it didn't last for 20 years. So I think that's one of the things we don't need to lose sight of is our faith and our faith in God and being united. The United States is better when we have a common goal, and we don't have that common goal, and that's what we need to get back to, a common goal.
I agree with Mark wholeheartedly on that. I mean, I've been to so much training since 9/11. The federal government threw money at training for anybody that wanted to go in emergency services. I've been to bomb schools. I've been to mass casualty schools. I've been to schools upon schools. Probably the most education we could have ever got in our job field come from that event. Not looking for the next one, but you got trained. If you wanted it, it was there. I've been through those ICS classes more than I want to be, the incident command system. It's just training upon training upon training and equipment. But you said it and Mark's touched on it. People have forgotten God, and this country has forgotten who takes care of us. And they need to turn back to God. They need to lean on Him and seek His guidance. I believe we are a faith-based community. There's a church on every corner, and if there's not, it's at the end of the dead-end street, wherever in Cleveland, Tennessee. You can get your way to a church. But our churches are right here in our hearts, too. You don't have to be in that building. But people need to be in their Bibles and pay attention to the Holy Spirit and what it's saying to them. But in that 20-year period, people get comfortable and complacent and forget about the one that takes care of us.
Yes, I wholeheartily agree. But as we were all speaking earlier, Sheriff and Chief both alluded to it. The days that followed 9/11, people responded in a phenomenal way and supported first responders in a way that we hadn't seen. And we're so blessed to live in a community where the community does continue to support our first responders. After that day, sadly, the patriotism waned after a while, and we went about our way. And as these 20 years have passed, all the support that we got from the government has basically went backwards. Law enforcement and emergency services in general, we're kind of put on the back burner now. And we're the front line here in each individual community, and we don't have the support that we once had from the government. But I am so thankful for the people, and just like the luncheon you guys provided us today, our community really appreciates what they have. But over the last 20 years, and especially in the last couple of years, and I know all of us guys, we've all been in this. I was doing my calculator earlier. This is my 34th year in emergency services, and I've never seen times like these in 34 years. Our system is hurting. Healthcare is hurting. Law enforcement's hurting. We need that unity again as a country. And there's no reason why that Bradley County can't be the flagship to start that. I mean, we work so close together. We're one team, and just so honored to be able to serve with these guys. And this is all we know, and we're just going to keep going. And we thank those that do support our emergency services and first responders and law enforcement. And we just I don't think there's ever been a time in my lifetime that we have to stand up and work together as one as it is right now.
One thing I know about history is that time fades history, and people forget, what's happened. So the one thing that I got in a bunch of training was, we're talking about God. Those people came over here to kill Americans because they love God. And that's one thing that I learned a lot. That's, then we have the cancel culture today, and they want to get rid of the police, and they want to, so the lines here in America are fuzzy. I don't think they're very fuzzy on the local level, but I will tell you on the federal level, they bought us all this equipment, they give all the training, and then once they got to a certain level, they didn't continue to support that any longer. So, the bomb robots and the bomb suits and a lot of that equipment used to detect certain chemicals. I mean, all that money kind of dried up and went away, and it's needed all the time. And if we can't get it from the federal side, then we have to step up and provide it on the local side. My biggest job is make sure that we're planning, we're training, we're equipping. Every one of these agencies are ready to go, and it's we do what we can, but it's limited, and we'll always continue to do that. But we have to look at protecting our first responders more than we ever had, because there's people out there that will challenge them in a way they've never been challenged before, and I see it all the time. And if you don't see it on the news, then you're not really focused on what's really going on in the world. And all these men and women need our support, and it needs to be supported monetarily as well. So just I hope we keep that in mind as people turn in budgets. It's not wish list, it's needed list, and that's we're focused on that. We challenge each other as departments to police that, to say, hey, do you really need it? And most of the time they're like, here's the reasons why, and they're giving all the right answers of why they should be funded, the equipment, the manpower that's needed. And I think the sheriff's, he's suffering, EMS is suffering, the fire department's suffering. We just cannot get first responders or people to want to be a first responder these days. So it's difficult in that aspect of things.
Sheriff, you said earlier we did have a lunch meeting earlier that, in fact, you don't have any applications right now. Is that true?
Zero.
Wow.
Zero applications. In fact, I pulled 3 more out of corrections, and they have the right to go, and that it tested, and the people that had finished second on the test, I said, you want to go to the academy, still want to go, and they'll be starting this week. I've never known a time at the sheriff's office in all my years, since my dad was sheriff in the 70s, that you didn't have applications. But when you have other agencies up in the ante down the road, and they're pulling our people, and it might not be politically correct to say this, but we have absolutely got to address our first responders in this county. I have went and just left the county commission meeting, in fact, as to where I presented within my budget itself that I was trying to move some money around and trying to give my folks just a little extra money. And I'm not talking about the ranking folks. I'm talking about the folks in corrections and the non-ranking officers on the patrol side, and trying to give them just a little more money. In addition to inflation and competing against everybody else, it's hard to get people. In the climate we live in today in law enforcement, in the last year to 2 years, people don't really want to be in police right now. It's hard to get them. We've got to turn that around. We've got to go back to that day where we backed them. And I told this other night when I spoke at a local church, I think it was Westmore, and I said this: if you see one, just tell him how much you appreciate him if he's in uniform, because today it's a tough job. And what we've done in this nation, I believe we've empowered probably 2% of the people think it's okay to challenge the police. We've given them a right to think it's okay to challenge the police. You never really heard in the days when I was growing up of officer-involved shooting. Now, people would fight you, and they would do this, but they generally wouldn't shoot you. But now, folks, it'll happen. And you have to take a life, and that's not easy. In law enforcement, you want to take nobody's life. We want our officers to serve the people. You remember the cars used to say on the side, we serve the people, right? And that's what we want to do, serve the people. We're blessed to be in this community. I can tell you that, because outside this community, it's a lot different. But I do believe inside our own communities, we need to look at first responders. And don't take, because you see a sheriff's car, an EMS vehicle, one of Mark's city police cars, or anybody in emergency services, that it's okay, because it's not okay. We're working short. I can tell you COVID, we got it just like everybody else. We have to battle hiring people now. It's tough. We'll get through it. And we're going to come out on the brighter side, because I've got a product to sell the commission and work with them and try to make the sheriff's office better. And I think everybody does across the board. So hopefully people will see, and we'll get better as we go. But we've got to be able to retain our good, the training everybody talked about. We need to be able to retain our people. To Mark's people, to my people, I can tell you this. Don't commit a crime in Cleveland or Bradley County, because we'll come after you. And we have people that know how to do their jobs, that I don't have to micromanage, nor does he. They can go do it. And don't feel like there's anybody outside of here that can do a better job than our investigators, because they can handle anything. Most agencies, and years ago even in Bradley County, you had to call on outside state agencies to help. We don't do that anymore. We can do it ourselves. And we're up to date, and we're blessed. And I'm blessed to have this job, but we got to move forward as we go. And I think that's what we can do to improve in our community as we go. Steve.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful discussion. I appreciate you gentlemen joining us today. The 20th anniversary of September 11th. Hard to believe, really. 20 years ago, Tuesday, September 11, 2001. We are marking this occasion in a couple of ways. We'll be marking it on the radio and also here on Mixed TV throughout this month, actually, but with this interview with our friends at Life Care Centers of America. And for all of us at Mix 1041, Talk 1013, and Mixed TV, I'm Steve Hartline. Have a great day.
I told my son to find me the nicest place to live in Cleveland. He said, Dad, there's only one place, and that's Garden Plaza. And I moved into the patio home. Everybody knows your name from day one, and there's something to do all day long if you want to participate in it. You cannot possibly be bored at Garden Plaza. It is just great, and their food is outstanding. It's out of this world. And I'm so happy I'm here. Garden Plaza is it for me.